So now we're getting into the point where we'll start to go through trade setups. And these are trades, actual real trades I did this morning. And this was more of a scalp. They were running up. I did some sales. This is a 1 minute graph. I had done a trade earlier, but I just kind of snapshot this. And then I was selling in here again. And then I had layered orders in for a scalp just to, once the market comes back in, it was all playing within the market grid. So I was selling at the top end of the market grid. This bar here, I sold when it was above the market grid here, above RTX. This is a 1 minute chart. And there were some other things going on, which I'll tie together. And then I was able to sell the next bar. I was able to sell R2 on the next bar on the 1 minute. And this trade actually came off pretty good. I'm not sure if I know I have some snapshots I can show you of this, but all I was trying to do is capture it coming back into the range again. There was nothing there was any real targets other than trying to scalp. I was scalping some size positions here. We're going to go through the trade setup here. Possibly, I don't know the way this is set up, if I'm going to be able to set up. I'll try to set up a screen so I can trade off of TradeStation here, maybe pull off a couple live trades, but we get a lot to do here. So this is the setup that I was on these 4 screens. Is we've got the 5-second chart, we've got the 1 minute, we got below the 1 minute is a 5 minute, and I have these things set in scales, and I can blow these up, so we'll look at each one, and I'll go through some of the details here. And all of these, I believe, should have Fibonacci projections on them. Everything should be in line. Let's go through the sequence. So if you can see this little icon, it's kind of small over on the far right-hand side. It says select layout. So when you click on that, it gives you this drop down, and I click the 4 boxes, and you can do all types of configuration. So I was just trying to do it so at least we can have a reasonable amount of visibility with some of these charts. Okay, let's break down the components here first. This is the 5-second chart, and when I first put this together, folks, this was probably maybe 6 months ago. I mentioned that this 16% line, this thing, I'll explain all these factors. So this is a 200 period moving average on a 5-second chart. Okay, turns out to be 16.6 minutes is what this is projecting. Here's what the components here. The only indicator I put on this is at the bottom, the 200, WaveTech 200 ppm, okay? And what I want you to see here is this is really interesting. It's happening. So once we start to get projections above the 200 on these algos, this algo goes out, I believe. Let's take a look, because I want to see. I'm looking out future bars, 150 bars on a 5-second chart. This basically, if we pull this over, this is about 6 minutes in the future. You figure out what 200 times 5 seconds is, brings you out about 6 minutes. So what it's telling us right now is our extreme predictions, 4420. The upper band right now is around 2075, and we're looking at 20 even to about 21, and that's what prices are looking to stabilize in here. And they're going, it looks like based on this, we're seeing the 200 start to turn down, and we're seeing the trend all of a sudden forecast. I want to teach you something about these algos while we're doing this. I actually did this chart to see how dynamic the algos were. So this is just a 5-second bar, and you can see how they're adjusting. And we're still looking at that 2021 range. And right now we're trading at 20. It's looking like we're trying to round off. You can see the PPM2 is turning up. What that's telling us is that this 16% line, the 200, is flattening out. You can see it flattening out. When you start to see forecasts above the 200, we're going to try to move above there, and you can see it looks like some fair strength coming in. So I'm going to try to tie this together, and hopefully you'll be able to understand this. And we're really just staying in. Now we're trading around 1950. There's still a downward slope. What I look for here is to see if the PPM 200 is being forecasted to go to zero. If you notice the value, it's 0.0008. And that thing never gets over 0.001 or 2. That's like a screaming move on this 200, on this 5-second. But all I'm doing here is when I'm looking, this is not going to tell us much about anything other than we're kind of consolidating here. So let's go over and let's look at some other trends here. So let's go to the 1 minute. What I'm looking at here when I'm doing this 200 period moving average start to decline again. Now it's minus 0.0014. Like I said, it sometimes gets to 0.001 plus. And so that this is a pretty substantial decline. But here's what we look at. Now I'm going to try to correlate these. And let me bring up the 1 minute, go full screen. So the 1 minute chart, what we're looking at, the algos are showing that the 10 PPM1 is trying to bottom. Now I go with all the PPMs. PPM2 still got a downward slope. PPM3 is positive 0.05. And so it looks to me that we probably come down to the 40 period moving average. We're negative on PPM1 and 2. The 40 is positive. This is going to get us over to that level. This is 1 minute. So if I'm looking for, if we were on this a little bit ago, we saw this PPM1 starting to roll over. I'm looking for some kind of top in here and then a scalp down to this number on a 1 minute graph. So I'm hopefully I can put this together, and we'll go back to full screen and I'll talk about all the charts at once. We are looking at all the way out at about 12:02. That's local time. That is 8 minutes from right now. We're looking at the potential for getting through that 40 period moving average. Okay. The next chart, that was the 1 minute. The next chart we're going to is the 5 minute, which is in the bottom. And the 5 minute has interesting things going on. We have some upward Fibonacci targets, 42, 47, 50. Those are big numbers for the 44 handle. And you see we got some nice upslopes here, but the PPMs are starting to fade. They're crossing. It looks like we're probably going to be testing the 10 period moving average in here, and then ultimately probably rolling back. I suspect some kind of sideways movement back into this range again. The 200 underneath here on the 5 minute is solid up. The 40 is solid up. We're looking at 0.27 trend mode. PPM 2, 0.23 trend mode. PPM 1, 0.20, basically above 0.15 is telling us that we're probably going to hold along this line. Once we start to see this to break down, looking at the potential of this rolling over. This is the other thing that's on here. These are this line right here is basically RTX around the 17 number. I think we printed up just above our RTX, and now probably looking for a little bit of a rejection. You can see the PPMs on a 5 minute. Looks like we want to come back into this 21 here. Okay. Just everything looks like a fade into here just based on the algo prediction. And the slope here is starting to roll. So this is going to be pretty solid support around 14, which is RTX. We do have some upward objectives way up here. I don't think these are valid this is one thing I've told you before. If you have the fib targets on the upside being projected, but you have negative PPMs, the chances of hitting these are usually not very good. It looks like a sustainable, because we're going out, with these algos, and you saw on the 5 second how they're going to update. And this is something I talk about often on the channel, that all of this algo stuff is going to be updating as as we get new information. So maybe this extreme that's being targeted here in the 5 and another 2 updates will start to moderate a little bit, and maybe it's not as extreme. But for me, it looks like even if I come over here, the PPM 2 is saying that this 21 paired moving average is probably going to be the primary in here, just based on that upward slope. That should be support level. Maybe we consolidate and then break to the 40. But for right now, if we were in sync and watching this thing, we probably, when we were getting up here at these higher levels up here at 24, we would have been scalping, looking for a move down to 14, maybe an 8-10 handle move. Let's go to one more chart, what I call bottom up. I start with the 5 second and then went all the way up. This is what I want to center in, especially for turning point type trades. And when you get into days like today where we're grinding higher like this, you get in trouble trying to sell some of this up on top. But let's bring up the hourly chart now. So the hourly chart here, algos are suggesting stay up into that last hour and then potentially fade in the last hour. I've talked about tie in the PPM understanding. Is right now we're above that first derivative. Here's the second derivative. If we wait for it to cross the second derivative, this trade's going to be over. It's sort of, once you get to the peak, you're looking to these other charts, the 1-5, as a potential for an entry point off of those charts. Using the hourly chart, is there value that's coming in? And then you're looking at, as we get into the close today, it's trying to challenge the first derivative. Like I said, once we get the next hour of data, where we at? We're 1 minute away. So let's stay here and see what happens. We just got the update, I think. Yeah, so we just got the update. Here's the new bar. And there's still, it flattened, it didn't turn down. So it looks like we got another hour up in here. And that'll take us into the final hour. So it looks like one more hour with an upward bias, but that doesn't mean we aren't going to trade between this scalp point here, which RTX, we're above RTX right now, that we probably come back to RTX. That's probably what I'm going to be looking at here. But you can see the peak in the PPM 1 is saying one more hour. We're looking at around the same in PPM 2. PPM 3 on the 40, that's way down here. That's really just trying to roll up. So I'm going to draw in something here now that we've gotten to this point. Actually, this was the big trade right here. This is the classic 1, 2, 3 trade that I'll show you. And we might just use this chart to demonstrate that as we go through this. But that swing, we could probably take a lot of indicators off here, throw on the pattern finder and find that 1, 2 pattern. But let's just stick with this right now. So what's likely to happen here is the market grid is going to probably do this. You're probably going to get, this is probably into the close. You're going to see it contract, and then we should consolidate up here. It doesn't look like there's one of these where we get a couple bars up here and then it's going to come down. This upward slope on this 10 is very positive. We're looking at 1.22. Now, 0.25 is bullish. Over here, 1.22, just value there on PPM 1 is actually telling you that this is a very powerful trend. And the worst case that's going to happen is you're going to trade sideways in there. We're day traders right now. So what we're doing right now, what I'm setting you up for is I'm giving you the concept and the idea of where we currently are and what's possible right now. So I'm thinking right now, if I've watched these numbers so much, I'm thinking, like I said, market grid starts to collapse in. This is sort of like we were talking about the difference between Bollinger Bands and the market grid. This is a pure market volatility. The Bollinger Bands are working out standard devs. What is likely to happen, we got this expansion. I want to expand this out so we can see this whole pattern just a little bit better. So we're going to, as we look at the bar, I'm going to draw this pattern back in again. I like to anticipate what's likely to happen. You can see over here on the far right, where I'm drawing some arrows over here, you got what I call volatility bubble. We're getting the same thing, although you had a nice channel. We actually got an RTX sell here, but we're following through. This is hourly. And my expectation is that this market grid does something like this. This is the scenario. Formation ends up to be like a dragon head, and they typically will continue higher. Point is here is that what we're looking at on an intraday basis, we're probably at an extreme. If we were to look at where we are, maybe we get to R1, R2 on this hour. That's also in play. We're looking at the PPM1 still looking to uptick for the next hour. We've got 3 hours up that we get one more hour up, and then we backfill a little bit. And I don't think we get below this bar low. From a day trader standpoint, we set up theoretical range, what we're expecting to happen. And we were starting this morning, this bar here is where I was scalping off the short side this morning. Let's go to all of the screens now and see if I can tie this together. So we got our 5-second chart, we got our 1 minute chart. So while I was doing that 1 minute played through its entire scenario that we were looking at, bring in the perspective of how to correlate these charts. On the 1 minute, we've got projections up to high target 33, 44.33, 44.39, 44.43. And you can see we have an upward slope. What we were looking at a little bit ago, I was talking about coming through the 10, through the 21, down to the 40. That's basically what happened. While I was going through all the explanation, I'm just pulling this over so you can see this just a little better. If you recall, we were trading just above the 10, that the algos were projecting that we're going to see downside in the 10, 21. So we should roll down to the 40. So there was a scalp trade up there at that 21 number when we first started this scenario. When we see this kind of setup here, that was the trade down to the 40 on a 1 minute chart. And that would have potentially yielded you, let's say you got in at 21, down to the 40 is puts you down around 18, maybe 17 here on the lows. Yeah, 18 was about all it got. So it's very short. It's probably about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. But now we're looking back and look what's happening. The algos are now forecasting, and you can see the forecast on the WTR. So we have the SMA prediction going on here. There's an angle of attack. Looks like a retest of the highs coming of a trade here. Basically, what we were talking about there actually happened. Let's go over to the 5. 5 minute, we were talking about a little negative here, but we're holding the 10. You still have an angle of attack here. So that trend is still up. We still have these valid fib targets up here. Seem kind of wild that we're going to print 34. That's a pretty big number. You can see that trend. All 3 of these moving averages just on the 5 minute are all up. So the last thing you want to do is try to get cute and scalp on the short side. You want to try to maybe buy the 21, and it looks like the 10 and 21 want to weaken that, but you have basically an upslope. I don't see us getting below whatever the 21 is. We just got an update, and if you notice, the algos kind of turned down a little bit. So we just got a 5 minute update, and the trends are starting to drop down. We're printing basically what the high of the day, get that 21 number. So there's like a 3.5 handle number there from that standpoint. I'm going to go to TradeStation here. We're trading the high of the day. And let's talk about the order book. I'm putting in some live orders just above the market here. Let's see if order filled. Okay, I just got filled on one. What I'm looking for is just a little scalp back into the range here. The algos on the 5-second chart, I can tell you what's going on, are projecting a little higher numbers here. I'm going to join this offer up here. There's 255 at 44.24. And then at the even numbers, there tends to be some fairly big orders. I've got 10 on right now. I'm just trying to scalp out. I've got a couple lot orders, but this is the interesting thing. You have to be careful at these highs. This is one of the extreme trades. When you get to these extremes, if you walk in the morning and they're trading okay, I just got filled on one of the orders. See if I get filled on the other. Just a quick scalp. And I'm actually Yeah, I got 5 more. I'm just going to close them out. Order filled. So I just made a few bucks there. See, we're getting this volatility bubble here on the market grid. This is the same thing that's in here, just that I can't display both and trade at the same time. So what we're looking at is getting up at the upper end. So what I can tell you on the screens, what you have is right now we're trading at the high end of the daily projections at just above RTX. 1 minute chart I'm looking at here is probably 3 or 4 minutes from potentially rolling over. I'm actually got some live orders in here. I'm trying to get short here. I missed it. I caught it for 5. Okay, I got 10 on. But so what's happening with the 5-second is we're below the 200. We're waffling. Looks like we're going to stay below. We got the magic 16 probability. So I just have to describe this best I can. The 1 minute is potentially rolling over. The 5 minute shows that we could have about a 5 to 10 minute downfall, like at least 2 bars. But the PPM, we're at PPM 1 on the 5 minute is at 0.15. A lot easier if we had a set of rules. I will formulate that. So I've just got a couple of scalp orders in here, but this high end pattern here, we're getting this pretty big volatility level here. And I'm going to show you a couple patterns here, and then I'll try to find them on TradingView as well. But we'll go through and try to set up an if and on this step by step. And matter of fact, so the 5-second right now is flatlined. I got a little negative trade going here right now. Looks like we got a little shot for just a touch weakness. We've been kind of locked in this 20-21 range, so we'll see if we can get a little bit of downside here. It looks like there's some reasonable potential print down to 2075, 2050, something like that. Let's do exactly if we can put kind of a sequence together. Yeah, so let's talk about liquidity while we're watching this trade here. This order book right now, there's 76 by 75, fairly thin. You see at 225, there's 219. If you can see my cursor up here with the hand, there's 219 for sale at 23.25. We go down below, pretty thin. There's not any big bids, but about 119 right at 21.50. Patterns, what I'm seeing here on the 5-second, we're trading right at we're waffling on either side of the 200 period moving average on the 5-second. 1 minute's got some new upward projection. So this is probably going to end up costing me money to get out of here. So still some light projections down for the market to move back to around 21.25. I may be able to scratch this trade. Yeah, I got 15 on, so let me get rid of that. If I can pull off a scratch trade, if they make a new high, then we got 236 for sale here, 268. Yeah, from the 5-second, we're printing the high of the day. There we go, trying to print through. Now there's 402 for sale at 24, almost 500 for sale at 24. They're a pretty big order. Actually pulling that bid, that break-even bid. I'm going to try to make some money on this trade. So yeah, that big seller shows up. There's 470 at 24 even. Everybody backed off that a little bit. I might be getting a little greedy. I think I can actually pull some money out of this. The 1 minute now is below the 200, kind of rounding off, trying to forecast back over the 200, but it's weakening a little bit along with the 1 minute and the 5 minute. I'll show you these charts as soon as I get out of this trade, and then we'll set up a set of rules. I think it's an awesome idea. Yeah, the 5 seconds kind of indicating sideways. 200's right at 22.50. So we're trading right at it right now. This is interesting because if we trade down below the low here that I have my cursor on, we're setting up what I call a veil top. And I'll explain this in a minute. So we're just a couple ticks away from exiting this. 5-second is forecasting little lower prices, trying to be patient here. A 5-second is still forecasting a little weaker prices, just looking for a 20.50 to get out of this trade. Make 812 bucks on it. One more click. Order. There it goes. Perfect. All right. Awesome. Probably early. I just wanted to get out of that trade. This formation, I call this a potential veil. We bounced pretty good. What you can't have, this veil tends to be a top here. And let me show you. Here's one right here where everything rolls over and then it starts to get crosses here. So you see the linear regressions get real tight. That tells you you have a strong trend as we were trading up into 21 the first time before we made this last high. Then everything rolled over. And it's almost like if you look at this, it's a water flow. And that's why we call that market flow indicator. And then once you see crosses, when the shorter linears start to cross the longer ones, those are typically bottoming formations. And then you can see here, I could have stayed short. Looks like a pretty decent top that's forming here. So we got this rolling flow here, basically sold into that. What we watch for now is it going to cross over? Is it going to roll over big? Because what can happen here is it can roll over and have an inverse where it gets going down so strong that all the linears go together into a rope. Look what we got. If this was going to be a big roll over here on the chart, we would not have got this V bottom on these. All of a sudden it's turned up. Likely we're going to go, the 5-second was projecting the market to turn around. Man, I wish there was a way I could show you all this. I've been trying to figure out a way to get a camera on, because I'm actually trading on this screen looking at the big monitors over here on my right. It's unfortunate. So, but that's a scalper mentality. I think I probably grabbed a couple grand there without trying very hard and a couple quick scalps. But now we're looking at probably setting up sideways range. You see market grid expanded back. We got crossovers here. We probably just get a choppy market. Let's go back to the screen and see a couple of things I want to try to do here. All right, so let's go back to that setup. The next phase we'll do, I just want to show you the scalper setup, how all this ends up coming together. And so let's go here. This is what I was talking about a few minutes ago, and then let's try to put a rule of how this stuff should be reviewed. This is what I was looking at. Forecast was showing me that the market was going to come down, and you can see, maybe you can see off on the far right, my cursor's at 44.20. That's pretty much where it forecasted. That's where I had my order to buy back on that short trade. We're looking at the actual here, but the forecast was showing that we're going to go back over the 200 and move up. So now you can see here, we're kind of forecasting. They're actually giving you for the next time we trade up to 22.50, you probably could have put that same scalp on again. Okay. And that would have been easy to do. This is going to be a sequence of events, and this will be for a swing trade or even identifying a period of time. The best thing, if you're a scalper like I've been, just to scalp in and out of these. You don't take a lot of risk. You're not hanging around the markets much. Start with the hourly. We're going to look for when is the next update. And the beauty of TradingView is they tell you how much time is left. Right now on the hourly chart, there's 27 minutes and 20 seconds. So you look for when's the next update. And then what we want to look at here, and we'll do it, okay, is on the next update. I was talking about this earlier. It's still suggesting that the next update is likely to be momentum, or PPM1 is likely to continue up. And pretty much, we'll put this up here, PPM1 has call it a V bottom or top, meaning that the next bar is going to turn up or turn down. Those are really what you're looking for, because then you're going to fade off of this thing. So you want to take the other side. Right now, we might be able to tune back in here. And as we come into the final hour, we're about a half hour from there, and look and see if this turns down. It looks like we may have print that we're likely to get. We may still be up, and we're not going to get the retracement. And this may be forecasting into, Sunday night even. Okay. But we look for the V bottom or top. If yes, let's say top or bottom, the opposite direction. So if you should be at an extreme bar as well. So this could get fairly complicated, but let's just see where we go. Take the opposite side. To determine entry, we'll go look at 1 and 5 minute. If the algos are indicating that taking the other side, that they're turning around and confirming up here, the V, actually it's up higher here. So up here, if we're getting that V bottom or top, and we look at the 1 and 5 minute algos, and they confirm that they're projecting that same direction, that is the opposite. If the reversal, that's yes, then you can take a trade, PPM 1 only. When I'm day trading, I never use stop. For whatever reason, we all do this, by the way. Wherever we put the stop, the market's going to go exactly there, and then it flips around, takes your money, and then does exactly what you thought it was going to do. So I try not to do that. So we take the trade, and then we're going to do something we don't have on the screen right now, but there's a couple things we can do. As we're doing this analysis, we want to determine where support or resistance is, okay? And what I'm going to use is the moving averages. We're using the 10 period when we determine where that support and resistance is based on the 1 and 5 minute charts. We develop a target. What we're doing then is we're looking at the hourly chart. We're seeing that V where it's like the bar we're on, it's showing that it's going to downtick. I'll move that down. In this range, we want to confirm that the PPM 1 did turn down or up as expected. This is going to be more of a multi-hour, so we'll call this more of a swing, intraday swing. Potentially have a confirmation of this that we'll see here as we go through. We got the V bottom or top. We got the update on the hourly. It actually turned down or up as we expected. Now we're looking, as we're coming into that hourly update, look at the 1 and 5. If the algo projection is confirming that our expectation, and especially on the 5, we're going to develop some kind of target. Maybe the target, like this morning earlier, I had a target, and we all do these things. My target was for the market to come all the way back to 73.50, and I got impatient. I took profits like at 75 or something, and it went 42.75 or 3 ticks below my price. But let's continue these rules. Let's look for a V real quick. The extreme here on Thursday, you can see where I've got the cursor right now. The PPM was turning up. It was suggesting that we would started to see that turn up, and there was a bit of a trade. It was kind of an upward slope, but what it was forecasting in 2 hours out, that we're going to, when you get this penetration of the second derivative here, that confirms that we're going to go through the moving average and we're going to move towards the 21, which it did here. It was forecasting a couple hours up, so we were going to come in to the 21. The 21 was still negative, so the 21 was declining. And so when we first saw this, the price was 43.54. And you would have seen this prior on this bar here. You would have seen that it was projecting that this was going to be the low bar. And once you see that, you can start to look at, especially in this case, we're looking at this, we were trading S3 as well. So you want to start clustering and looking for all kinds of confirmations. And this is what I was telling you, when you get into intraday, this just gets super complex. There's a lot to think about. And it's sort of like if you were an NFL quarterback, you got 3 seconds to throw the ball. Otherwise, you're going to get sacked. Same thing here. If you don't get the trade on when you see these trades set up, then you can be prepared, because you're going to know when that hourly update happens that that's going to be your deal. So you want to buy it. When you see some of these hourly updates, it's pretty insane. We're actually going to have one there's going to be an update here in 15 minutes. So this is perfect, because guess what? We're trading RTX. We're trading the extreme. So this is kind of an extreme potential reversal. We're coming in, but it does tell us we're going to get an update here in 12 minutes, okay? And when we get this update, if it ticks up, there's probably still going to be an upward bias, but what it does look like is after the close, we might see little selling coming in, being a Friday where there's some aftermarket selling maybe coming in. We're 12 minutes away. So let's go over to the 5 minute. This is interesting. 5 minutes still got an upward slope. It's not really confirming. So we're not getting that confirmation. We're still plus 0.6 on PPM 1, but it's flat to going up on this next. It's forecasted to cross the first derivative. We're not getting a downtick here yet. It's 1 hour away. But if we were having it and these indicators were all pointing down, the 40 and the 21, if we look at this current setup, are suggesting that we could come down, get to the 40, and it's rising. So if we go into that last hour, we're probably looking at the potential to come back into, I just put this range between 44.12 to 44.15, and we're trading right now at 22. So nothing big. There could be a 10 handle pullback, but we're still an hour and something away from that. But sometimes when you get these setups like this V right here, this was a nice turnaround. This was a really good one. This nice forecast move off there. Just looking here, this was a perfect V bottom off. This is the 5 minute chart. So this is early this morning. The 5 minute chart, this is the turn up. The next bar, right at this bar, both the PPM 1 turned up, PPM 2 turned up, and PPM 3 was kind of slightly up, being forecasted if we went back to the forecast. So right here is where this started, and we started to see this forecast. Everything starts turning up, and the market just screams. And it's the same thing where we're getting that turnaround right there. We also had a pivot. We had this Fibonacci pivot right here. Whenever you get this bar right here, it was at 43.77, and the low of that pattern right there was 43.69. So when 69 was a pivot, we got a 68.50 low. So 50 cents under there. And these indicators are all turning up. I trade this stuff all the time, just on a turn up. It doesn't have to cross first, second derivative. That's for a bigger trend. And now you can see once that happened, then it was confirming a longer trend. But just trying to find a low, the same technique I was just setting up on an hourly chart works as well. We got 7 minutes to go to that close. I want to make sure I have the hourly chart up there. So as we look at the current here, so once we got these crossovers, you saw we got the trend was developed and we're crawling along the 10 period moving average, and it just keeps climbing here. And once we crossed over, PPM 1, 2 was crossing over. That was that positive trend. Now we're coming to the end. Looks like PPM 1 wants to roll. I'm going to argue that we get back to like that 44.12 number, and that's what the hourly was. Now, this will be interesting because when we get this update here, we're close to a peak. At least that's what it's indicating. Still have this angle of attack, so sometimes we go sideways into the 10, but it should be downward. I suspect we get back to this number somewhere in there where we're going to retrace back in. Market stabilizes. That would be my expectation here. So we'll hang around. Let's go back to the rules and see if we can expand these over the next couple of minutes here. Right now, what we're seeing just on the current setup, we're waiting for the update. It's forecasted to actually be higher, so it's not really right at that pinnacle. We're still looking at that point where maybe it's going to be a high. The other thing we'll look for is, does the market grid turn down on the update? We get a downward slope and we get a contraction, we're probably going to come back in. If confirmed, all the other rules, then take position. So we look for the hourly update. We're about to do that. We're looking at the 5 minute to see if that kind of indicating, it does indicate we're close to a top. We're trading RTX, so we're stacking up our trade. We could even add that. So where are we on daily market grid? That's also going to help. It looks like we're looking at right now almost perfect. We've got an RTX high here. We're 2 minutes and 42 seconds here. And it's so amazing. Sometimes you get the hourly close. We're going to obviously, all of these charts, the 1 minute, the 5 minute, and hourly, are all going to set new bars at exactly the same second. All these on the screen. Look at this. The 5 second is pointing to the upside right now, or the 1 minute still has some upside. 5 minutes still got a slight upward slope, but the PPMs are below per second derivative on all three. It's actually going negative as we're coming in here. We're a minute 16 away. If you look here at the 15 second, we traded right up to the magic 16 right here. If you can see my cursor on the upper left here. We are 45 seconds from the up. So we're going to get a new bar on this hourly chart. Last hour was very narrow, by the way. It's hovering right around this level. So we're trading just above 6. If we look at the forecast, it's forecasting flat as we come in. 5 minute is actually turning down over here. We got the new bar going. It's got a red bar here. Let's open up. We did get, the forecast was reasonably accurate. Let me bring this up. You see we actually upticked just a little bit. As a matter of fact, it's got one more uptick, but look what happened. Market grid slightly turned down up at the top. We're going to get into that range. I suspect we'll trade easily between 14 and 12. As far as the market grid goes, 44.24 is R1. This is hourly market grid. Let me put this back up again real quick. Check hourly market grid, and I'll just do MG. Look for possible ranges. R1, maybe S2, and we'll see what those values are. So R1, 24.29, and S1 on the hourly is 17. Look at this. S2 is 13. Hourly, everything is suggesting we're getting a bit of a bid coming in here at the moment. We're trading up to 22.25. Like I said, R1 would be 24. So if I were looking to take on a trade here, previous hour 24 was exactly the last hour's high. You can see we're trading right near the highs of the session. I'm going to put a live trade in here at 22.50. You always know you're good when they don't fill you. I only got a partial fill. It's always a good trade when they're okay. Now they got it all. All right. So I'll probably get stopped out because I'm putting it in here. I'm just putting a stop above the highs just so we can go back to what we were doing. So we still have upward pressure here. Last hour was low volatility. We had a very narrow range. The range was 18 to 24. I would expect that we have a chance at going under 18. This is what I was talking about just a little bit ago, is it looks like we should test the 21. We should come down to this 40. I've got a bet on. We'll see if I end up getting stopped out, but I think we can hit 14 or so on the downside. So what I'm going to do here, look at it, we're already profitable. Let's put that 14 trade in here. Let's go just above it, 15.50. So I've just bracketed this trade. Okay, let's go back let's go back here. So let's see where we are. We got the hourly reversal. The 5 minute is suggesting that's what we're seeing on the screen here on the side, that we could come down to 40. It looks like declining on PPM2. See the red line over here. See if I can get a cursor on it. PPM2 is coming down. PPM3 is also coming down. So this is rolling over. We should easily, I think, possibly get into that 15 handle. And we're still trading 21 at the moment. Let's see where I got that thing off at. I got it off at 22.50. Just got 5 going. A 5 minute, you can see it's rolling over. It's forecasting for the moving averages to get into one of those wedges. So this is the thing I've been teaching you folks on YouTube all the time. Upward shape, you got upward slope on the 40 and downward slope on the 10. We should end up in this little void area here. We got to get below the 21, and where are we at here? We are 3 minutes and 16 seconds away from the next update, and the 21 is looking like it's trying to develop more downward pressure. There is risk. We do have fib targets on the upside, still coming up with those 33, 36 numbers, which are pretty big numbers. I don't know that they can pull that off, but anything's possible. But the 10, you can see PPM1 is starting to fade. This 5-minute chart stay up. Let's go back and review. If we're looking for a big reversal, it could be that there's a pattern intraday that you're getting that same PPM1 turn up. On this trade, you only need PPM1. I've said this before on the channel, as really what we're looking at is a lot of times we'll see this turn up and it's just like catches a huge reversal trade. These things can be really, really powerful. So we're look for that, look for a V bottom or top, meaning that the PPM1 is, you're going to have the forecast is showing that it's going to turn down sharply. On the next one, go to the next level. Can we confirm that by looking at 1 and 5? Is there potentially negative trends or positive trends depending on the direction of that V, whether it's up or down? And once we get that, then we are going to page 2, and we're going to look and see where we are on the market grid, see if we can look at hourly market grid. And we also can look at hourly moving averages. Sometimes it looks like, hey, we're going to come down on the next hour into this range that is also right at the 21 or the 10 or some other value that has a PPM that's positive. Hopefully I'm connecting all the dots on this. We spent a fair amount of time, but these are the ways to find these pivots, intraday pivots, and especially the volatility levels anymore. These are monster trades when you get them right. I'm still hovering 22. I'm short 22.50. Looks like we've got an update here coming 24 seconds on this 5-minute. Forecast is a slight uptick on the 1, but the 21 and 40 are forecasting downticks. Okay, so PPM1 turned up, PPM2 turned down, PPM3 turned down. PPM1 was just to the second derivative here. And now it's showing at least 3 or 4 downticks. The 5-second chart on the big screen over here that you can't see, it's basically forecasting going back to the 200 moving average right now. Well, now it's forecasting to go under it. We just went under it. I think we see 15 handle or something. I just noticed something else on this 5-minute chart that came up. So these are all important things here. We got 3 Fibonacci really tight projections. And if we look at what those are, low target 1, 44, 19, 18, 17. That's these 3 little dots here on this bar. We're trading 23 handle now. They may blast us to the top. Who knows? We'll hear order filled. I got it stopped just above. Yeah, we'll just ride this out. As soon as we end up here in another minute or so, I'll come back up. We'll kind of summarize see what kind of questions are out there, and we'll do our 15-minute break. You can put the question is, when do you use volume RLC as well on these trades? You can do that looking for some kind of a cluster and activity that maybe is giving you a potential reversal. Since we've been talking here, folks, going back to 12:10 an hour, we've basically been a sideways little range here. This is a 5-minute. Of course, this always happens and we don't get any volatility, but see if we forecast on the 5-second is telling us we're going to come under the 200. Forecasting a little bit weaker. We're a minute 46. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I threw up the volume RLC down here, and you can see there's so little. The last time we got anything was earlier this morning, which was the turning point before the rally. So there's really nothing there at the moment. Very quiet since this whole period of time. What we look for is some kind of extreme on the volume to have some big change. 35 seconds to next update. Forecast is all lower on all the indicators. Let me get rid of this thing. Okay, here's our update. Turning back at 22, 25. Just can't get out of the range. Still got a fib targets that I just mentioned on the downside. The PPM1 turned down a little bit. PPM2 turned down. PPM3 is trying to turn down. But we seem to be stuck in the range. Let's take a look and see where I put my stop. Yeah, I put it just above the high of the day. This will guarantee I get stopped out. I'll put it at 23.75. Still pushing for, we're going to go 15.75. So it's starting to roll just a little bit. This is like I said, watching paint dry for sure. Okay, folks, I've been off screen for a while. I hope that the rules helped you a little bit. Okay, here's the plan. We'll come back and we'll go through probably the indicators, set up some swing trading. It's very intuitive for me because I've done it for so long, but just trying to set up those rules. So hopefully this was a little helpful. But actually, that whole setup, what we're going to do is the same thing we're going to do when we start looking at swing trades on like on a daily chart. We're going to look for maybe that turn up if we're just looking to get the best value on a turnaround. And then we're going to look at what if you wait for a full trend setup there.